Stand down, everybody! Stand down now! Colonel Harrington's voice exploded across every radio frequency simultaneously. 35 soldiers froze mid-operation. Weapons lowered. Confusion rippled through the darkness. In the center of the chaos stood a 23-year-old woman, 5'3", 118 pounds. Her torn glove exposing a tattoo that made a decorated Special Forces colonel stop a multi-million-dollar training exercise with a single command. The Black Viper. 39 stars, Camp Pendleton, California, 0247 hours. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. If you want to know why that mark stopped everything, subscribe to our channel. Follow this story to the end and comment which city you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. The Pacific fog crawled across Camp Pendleton like a living thing swallowing the parade ground in gray silence. Maya Sterling stood at the edge of the formation, her boots planted exactly 6 inches apart, her eyes forward, her breathing controlled. 28 candidates surrounded her. All men, all larger, all convinced they belonged here more than she did. She'd counted them during the walk from the barracks. 14 Rangers, 6 Special Forces candidates, 4 Navy SEALs in cross-training, 3 Marine Force recon, and 1 former Delta operator who kept cracking his knuckles like he was preparing for a bar fight instead of a selection course. Maya was none of those things, at least not officially. Her personnel file said military police, 4 years of service, administrative transfer, nothing special, nothing threatening, nothing that would make any of these men look twice. That was exactly what she wanted. Formation a 10 hut. Captain Eduardo Reyes stepped onto the platform, his voice cutting through the fog like a blade through silk. 46 years old, 3 combat tours. The kind of face that looked like it had been carved from sandstone and left in the desert sun too long. Maya straightened with the others, but her eyes were already cataloging. Exit points, sight lines. The way Reyes moved, favoring his left leg slightly, probably an old injury that still talked to him on cold mornings. "Welcome to Joint Special Operations Selection," Reyes announced. "Final evaluation phase, 72 hours. You've spent 3 weeks proving you can run, shoot, and follow orders. This is where we find out if you can actually think." A murmur rippled through the formation. Maya didn't move. "Your mission is simple," Reyes continued. "Extract 2 high-value targets from a fortified position. Evade a 35-man opposition force. Reach extraction point Delta within the time window. Fail any element, you're done." He paused, letting the weight settle. "Historical success rate for this exercise is 33%. 2/3 of you will fail. Some of you will quit. A few of you will get hurt badly enough to wash out permanently." Maya felt the energy shift around her, fear mixing with bravado. The classic cocktail of young men facing their first real test. Teams will be assigned at 1800 hours. Until then, you're dismissed to prep your gear. Questions? Silence. Questions were weakness. Everyone knew that. "Outstanding! Get out of my sight!" The formation dissolved into clusters of movement. Maya turned toward the barracks, keeping to the edges, her footsteps silent on the wet asphalt. She'd made it exactly 14 steps before the voice found her. Hey, transfer." Maya stopped. Didn't turn. Counted to 3 in her head, letting the anger flash and fade before it could reach her face. "I'm talking to you, sweetheart." Now she turned. Sergeant Marcus Cole stood 6 feet 2 inches tall, 190 pounds of muscle built in Afghanistan and maintained in stateside gyms. Ranger tab on his shoulder, combat infantry badge on his chest. The kind of jaw that looked like it had been specifically designed for recruiting posters. He was smiling. The smile of a man who'd never been told no by anyone who mattered. "Can I help you, Sergeant? Just wondering what a desk jockey's doing in a SOF selection course." He looked her up and down, making a show of it. You get lost on the way to the typing pool. Laughter rippled from the men behind him. 5 of them. Pack behavior, establishing dominance over the newcomer. Maya kept her expression neutral. She'd faced worse in places these men had only read about in briefing documents. Same as you, Sergeant. Attending training. That right? Cole stepped closer. Close enough that she could smell his aftershave, something expensive. Probably a gift from a girlfriend who didn't know he wouldn't be coming home the same person. What's your MOS admin logistics? Please tell me it's not public affairs. Does it matter? It matters when I'm about to spend 3 days in the field, and I need to know if you're going to slow us down. He glanced back at his audience playing to them. Or worse, get someone killed because you can't keep up. Maya met his eyes, held them, let 3 seconds of silence stretch into 5. I'll try to keep up, Sergeant. Something flickered across Cole's face. A flicker of uncertainty there, and gone so fast most people would have missed it. But Maya wasn't most people. Yeah, he said finally. Sure you will. He turned and walked away, his entourage following like obedient dogs. Their laughter echoed off the barracks walls, but Maya noticed that Cole didn't join in. Interesting. She continued toward the barracks, filing the encounter away for later analysis. Cole was arrogant, but not stupid. He'd sensed something wrong in her non-reaction. His instincts were better than his behavior. That could be useful, or dangerous. Possibly both. Chapter 1. The barracks smelled like gun oil and testosterone. 30 bunks in 2 rows, footlockers at the base of each rack, the accumulated anxiety of 28 men who were pretending they weren't nervous. Maya chose a bunk at the far end near the emergency exit. Force of habit. Always know where the doors are. Always position yourself where you can see threats coming. She unpacked with mechanical precision. 3 changes of PT gear, cold weather layers, water purification tablets, first aid kit, the real kind, not the basic issue garbage that wouldn't stop a paper cut, a fixed blade knife with a handle worn smooth from 4 years of use. And the gloves. Always the gloves. She pulled them on carefully, making sure the left one covered her wrist completely. The fabric was wearing thin near the seam. She'd need to replace them soon. You always that quiet? Maya looked up. A young soldier stood 3 bunks away, watching her with the kind of open curiosity that said he hadn't been in long enough to learn not to ask questions. Private First Class Danny Reese, 21 years old. Baby face that still held on to softness his body had already lost. Eyes that hadn't seen enough to develop the 1,000-yard stare. When I'm focused, Maya replied. Fair enough. Reese didn't leave, just stood there shifting his weight from foot to foot. I'm Danny. Most people call me Reese. Sterling. First name? No. Reese blinked. Processed, nodded. Okay, cool. Sterling it is. He still didn't leave. Maya felt the question coming before he asked it. So what unit are you from? Your file says MP, but... He trailed off, gesturing vaguely at her gear layout. The knife placement. The way her equipment was arranged for maximum efficiency of movement. My file is correct. Yeah, but MPs don't usually... Private. Maya's voice dropped half an octave. Not threatening, just final. My unit designation is classified. My previous assignments are classified. My reasons for being here are my own business. Do you understand? Reese's eyes went wide. Classified? Like actually classified? Is there another kind? No. He caught himself straightened slightly. Sorry. None of my business. Maya softened just a fraction. He reminded her of someone. A young Marine she'd extracted from a bad situation in Aleppo 3 years ago. Same eager face, Same dangerous curiosity. That Marine had died 6 months later in a training accident that wasn't really an accident. Reese. Yeah, that curiosity of yours. It's going to get you in trouble someday. He grinned, completely missing the warning. That's what my drill sergeant said, and my mom, and my first CO, and pretty much everyone I've ever met. Despite herself, Maya almost smiled. Almost. Then maybe you should listen. Where's the fun in that? He wandered off to his own bunk, still grinning. Maya watched him go, then turned back to her gear. 3 bunks down, she noticed Cole watching. His expression was different now. Less mocking. More calculating. He'd seen the way Reese had reacted to her, seen the way her presence had shifted the energy in the conversation. And he was smart enough to wonder why. Maya made a mental note. Cole was going to be a problem, but maybe not the kind of problem she'd initially assumed. 1400 hours. Close quarters combat training. The gymnasium smelled like sweat and old mats, and the particular desperation of men trying to prove themselves through violence. Maya stood at the edge of the group, watching the instructor set up the training area. Captain Victor Shaw, 47 years old. Compact build that suggested speed over raw power. Gray at the temples, but his movements were still fluid, economical. The kind of man who'd spent 30 years learning how to hurt people efficiently and was now paid to teach others the same skills. He'd been watching Maya since she'd entered the room. Not obviously he was too professional for that, but she'd caught the glances, the way his eyes lingered on her hands, the way he'd positioned himself to keep her in his peripheral vision. He knew something, or suspected something. Either way, he was paying attention. Close quarters combat, Shaw announced, pacing in front of the assembled candidates. No rules, no time limits, no points. You fight until one person can't continue, or until I stop it. He let that sink in. This isn't about winning. It's about surviving. In real CQC, there are no referees, no second chances. You either neutralize the threat or you become a casualty. Understood? Yes, sir. Outstanding. Partner up. The candidates moved with practiced efficiency, choosing opponents they knew, or at least opponents who looked like reasonable challenges. Maya stood still waiting. No one approached her. The silence stretched. Awkward. Pointed. 28 men, and not one of them willing to be seen fighting a woman half their size. Problem, Sterling, Shaw's voice cut across the room. No, sir. Just waiting for assignment. Shaw's eyes flickered to Cole, then back to Maya. Something that might have been amusement crossed his weathered face. Sergeant Cole, you're up. Cole's expression shifted through surprise, reluctance, and finally resignation in the space of a second. He stepped forward, rolling his shoulders in the universal gesture of men preparing to fight. Yes, sir. They moved to the center mat. Maya stood with her hands at her sides, her weight balanced her breathing steady. Cole bounced on his toes, loosening up, making a show of his preparation. You sure about this transfer? His voice was low, meant only for her. I'd hate to hurt you before the fun starts. I appreciate your concern, Sergeant. Your funeral. Shaw raised his hand. Standard rules. Fight ends when someone taps, loses consciousness, or I call it. Maya nodded. Cole cracked his knuckles. Fight. Cole came in fast. Too fast. Overconfident. He telegraphed the right hook from 3 feet away, all arm, no body rotation. Amateur hour. Maya's mind catalogued the openings in the half-second it took him to close the distance. His chin was exposed. His left side was unprotected. His weight was too far forward. She could end him 6 different ways before his fist completed its arc. She chose the one that would hurt the least. Maya moved into him, not away. inside his reach where the power couldn't generate. Her left hand caught his wrist mid-swing, redirecting the momentum. Her right hand shot to his elbow, applying just enough pressure to compromise his balance. She stepped through, hip against his pelvis, used his own forward momentum to take him over. Physics. Leverage. The kind of muscle memory that came from doing the same movement 10,000 times until it was as natural as breathing. Cole hit the mat hard. The air exploded from his lungs in a single grunt of shock. Before he could process what had happened, Maya had his arm locked, wrist bent at an angle that made every nerve in his shoulder scream. Her knee pressed between his shoulder blades. Control position. 2.1 seconds. The gymnasium went absolutely silent. Maya held the lock for another heartbeat, feeling Cole's pulse hammering against her palm. Then she released and stepped back, offering her hand. Cole stared at her. His face cycled through emotions too fast to track shock, confusion, rage, something that might have been fear. Finally, it settled on something she hadn't expected. Respect. "Tap out, Sergeant." He took her hand. Let her pull him up. His grip was firm but not aggressive. "Lucky shot," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Is that a tap out?" "Yeah." He released her hand, rubbed his shoulder. "Yeah, I'm done." Maya turned to Shaw. The captain was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite categorize. Not surprised he'd expected something like this, but there was recognition in his eyes. The look of a man who'd just had a suspicion confirmed. "Where'd you train Sterling?" "Around, sir." "Around." Shaw's voice was flat. Dangerous. "Yes, sir." "That wasn't Standard Army combatives." "No, sir, it wasn't." Shaw held her gaze for a long moment. The other candidates watched, barely breathing, sensing something significant happening that they didn't quite understand. "What unit did you say you came from?" "I didn't, sir." Shaw's jaw tightened, then relaxed. He nodded once, sharp and final. "That's how you use momentum against a larger opponent," he announced to the room, his voice snapping back to instructor mode. "Size doesn't matter. Speed doesn't matter. Understanding the mechanics of violence matters. Next pair on the mat." But as Maya walked back to the edge of the group, she felt Shaw's eyes following her. And she knew with absolute certainty that their conversation wasn't finished. 1,500 hours. Rifle range, 300 yards. Pop-up targets. Standard M4 carbine. 40 rounds. Expert qualification required 36 hits. Maya settled into position 5. Prone. Rifle tucked tight into her shoulder. Cheek weld solid. Breathing controlled. The M4 felt familiar in her hands. Good weight. Honest weapon. Point and shoot. She'd qualified expert on dozens of weapons systems over the past 4 years. Soviet-era AKs, Chinese knockoffs, custom sniper platforms that cost more than most cars. The M4 was straightforward, almost boring. "Shooters ready," the rangemaster called. "Watch your lanes. Fire when targets appear." The first target popped up at 50 yards. Center mass. Maya's finger found the trigger. Controlled squeeze. 4.5 pounds of pressure exactly. The rifle barked. The target dropped. Muscle memory took over. Breathe. Sight picture. Squeeze. Breathe. 100 yards. Moving target. Lead it. Account for the 3-mile-per-hour crosswind. Squeeze. Drop. 200 yards. Partial cover. Aim for the exposed portion. Squeeze. Drop. 300 yards. Head shot only. the hardest qualification target. Maya adjusted her aim 2 inches left, accounting for the afternoon breeze coming off the Pacific. Exhaled slowly. Squeezed. The target dropped. 40 rounds. 40 hits. She cleared her weapon, set it down, and stood. Around her, other candidates were finishing their qualifications, most scoring in the 36 to 38 range. Solid. Combat effective. The rangemaster walked to her position, checked her target card, then looked at her like she'd just materialized from another dimension. 40 out of 40. Yes, Sergeant. Perfect score. Yes, Sergeant. He handed back her scorecard. You some kind of competition shooter, Sterling? No, Sergeant. Just practiced. Uh-huh. He didn't believe her. But he didn't push either, just moved on to the next candidate, shaking his head. Cole appeared at her shoulder. His scorecard showed 38. Excellent by any standard, but not perfect. Range Princess luck, he muttered. Let's see how you do when the targets shoot back. Maya said nothing, just collected her brass and moved to the next station. But she noticed the way the other candidates watched her now. Less dismissive, more cautious. The hierarchy was shifting, and they could all feel it. 1,600 hours. Obstacle course. 12 stations designed to test strength, endurance, and pain tolerance. Rope climb. Wall scaling. Barbed wire crawl. Monkey bars. Maya moved through the course with mechanical efficiency. Not the fastest, several of the larger candidates blew past her on the strength-dependent obstacles. Not the strongest, her arms burned during the rope climb, and she had to grit her teeth through the monkey bars. But smooth. No wasted motion. Every movement calculated for maximum efficiency. The barbed wire crawl was low. 30 yards of mud and wire strung 2 feet off the ground. You had to stay flat. Use your elbows and knees. Ignore the way the wire caught your uniform. Maya dropped to her belly and started moving. The mud was cold, sucking at her elbows. The wire scraped her back, caught on her pack. Halfway through the wire snagged her left glove. The torn seam she'd been nursing for weeks. She felt the fabric pull, heard the rip. Her heart stopped. Maya yanked her arm free, pulling the glove back into position. But the damage was done. The seam had torn further, exposing a strip of skin on the inside of her wrist. And there, dark against pale skin, was the mark. A black serpent coiled around a lightning bolt, surrounding it in a perfect circle. 39 stars. Maya froze for half a heartbeat. Pulled the glove back down, covering the mark. Kept moving. But 40 feet away on the observation platform, Captain Shaw had been watching through binoculars. His hand stopped mid-gesture, froze in the act of checking his stopwatch. He lowered the binoculars slowly. His face had gone very still. The kind of still that came from seeing something that changed your entire understanding of reality. Maya finished the course in 23rd place, middle of the pack, unremarkable. But as she collected her gear and headed toward the barracks, she felt Shaw's gaze following her like a targeting laser. The secret was cracking, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. 1,700 hours. Personal prep time. Maya sat on her bunk, examining the torn glove. The fabric was shot. No way to repair it properly. She'd have to be more careful. Much more careful. Footsteps approached. Slow. Deliberate. Military bearing with something extra underneath. Captain Shaw stopped at the foot of her bunk. Up close, she could see the details she'd missed before. Jump wings on his chest. Combat infantry badge. A small purple ribbon that indicated he'd bled for his country. and eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. "Sterling." "Sir." Shaw glanced around the barracks. Empty. Everyone else at the mess hall, or the equipment shed. "That mark on your wrist." Not a question. A statement. Maya's hand moved instinctively to cover the glove. "Just an old tattoo, sir." "No, it's not." Silence stretched between them. Maya could feel the weight of the moment. The choice. Admit nothing and maintain cover, or acknowledge what he'd seen and accept whatever consequences followed. "Where'd you serve, Sterling, really?" "Classified unit, sir." "Classified?" Shaw's voice was flat. "You know how many classified units I've worked with over 25 years? No, sir." "A lot, and I've seen that mark exactly twice before." He leaned closer, voice dropping. "Both times on operators who could do things that shouldn't be possible. Both of them are dead now. Damascus, Mosul, places the army doesn't officially operate." Maya met his eyes. Steady, giving nothing. "How long ago?" Shaw asked. "How long ago what, sir? How long since you left?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Maya knew she should deny, should maintain the cover that had protected her for 2 years. But something in Shaw's eyes told her he already knew. Had known since the moment she'd dropped Cole in 2 seconds flat. 2 years. Shaw absorbed that, nodded slowly. "And you're here because I needed to know?" Maya heard her own voice, distant and strange. "If I could still do it. If I wasn't just—" She paused, searching for a word that didn't exist. "Broken." Shaw studied her for a long moment. His expression shifted through something that might have been understanding. Or pity. Or both. "Your secret's safe with me, Sterling. For now." He straightened his voice, hardening. "But that course you're about to go on, it's designed to break people. Push them past their limits. You go full operator out there, everyone's going to know." "I'll be careful, sir." "No." Shaw's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't be careful. Be smart. There's a difference." He turned to leave, paused at the door. "And Sterling, that mark means something. Don't waste it playing games with children." After he left, Maya sat in the silence and stared at her hands. Beneath the glove, scars told stories she'd never share. Calluses from weapons most soldiers would never touch. The permanent record of violence written into her bones. She was Shadow Viper. One of 39. And you didn't retire from Shadow Viper. You just stopped pretending you could. 1800 hours. Mission briefing. The briefing room smelled like coffee and dry erase markers, and the particular stress sweat of men facing their limits. Captain Reyes stood at the front, arms crossed, waiting for silence. Maya sat in the back row watching the other candidates settle. Their body language told stories they didn't know they were telling. Nervous energy. False confidence. The desperate need to prove themselves. Cole sat 3 rows ahead. He'd been watching her since the hand-to-hand training. Not with hostility anymore. With something closer to calculation. "Final evaluation," Reyes announced. 72-hour field exercise. 4 teams of 7. Objectives are simple. Extract 2 high-value targets from fortified position here. He pointed to a map on the screen. Evade opposition force. Reach extraction point here. All while maintaining mission security and team cohesion. He clicked to the next slide. Satellite imagery of a mock village. Guard towers. Patrol routes. Defensive positions. Opposition force consists of 35 soldiers. They know you're coming. They know the general time window. They do not know your specific approach or tactics. They are authorized to use aggressive force within training parameters. A murmur rippled through the room. Aggressive force meant bruises, maybe broken bones, maybe worse. Team assignments. Reyes read from a tablet. Team Alpha. Sergeant Cole, team leader. Cole straightened. Expected. Reyes continued reading names. When he reached the fifth name, he paused. Sterling, Team Alpha, second in command. The room shifted. Subtle, but unmistakable. The other candidates exchanged glances. Cole's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Second in command. The position you gave someone you either trusted completely or wanted to watch very carefully. Maya knew which one this was. Reyes finished the assignments and clicked to the next slide. Mission launches at 400. Team leaders, you have until 2300 to develop your approach. I suggest you use the time wisely. He paused, scanning the room. Historical success rate for this exercise is 33%. Most teams don't even reach the objective. Last year, one team succeeded. 1 out of 4. Those are your odds. The weight of that number settled over the room like a funeral shroud. Questions, silence. Outstanding. Dismissed to planning. The candidates filed out. Maya waited until most had left before approaching the door. Cole was waiting in the hallway. Sterling. Sergeant. He fell into step beside her. Not aggressive, almost conversational. That move you used on me, in CQC, that wasn't Army, wasn't Marine, wasn't anything I've ever seen in any training program. I had a good instructor. Yeah. Where? Maya kept walking. Classified. Everything about you is classified. Cole's voice carried a new note, not frustration, curiosity. Your unit, your training, your file reads like someone edited out everything interesting and left the boring parts. Maybe I'm just boring. Cole laughed. Actually laughed. Sterling, whatever you are boring, isn't it? They reached the team planning room. The other 5 members of Team Alpha were already inside, gathered around a map table. Cole paused at the door. I'm not going to ask again, he said quietly. Whatever your deal is, it's your business. But out there, he nodded toward the darkness beyond the window, I need to know you've got my back. Maya met his eyes. For the first time since she'd arrived, she let a fraction of what she really was show through. Sergeant Cole, if something goes wrong out there, I won't just have your back. I'll have everyone's back, and I'll get them home. Something passed between them. An understanding that transcended rank and ego. Cole nodded once. Okay then, let's go plan this thing. They entered the room together, and in the observation tower overlooking the barracks, Colonel James Harrington lowered his binoculars and reached for his phone. Captain Shaw, my office, now. The call lasted 11 seconds. Tell me everything you know about Sterling. Sir, her file is... I don't care about her file. I care about that mark on her wrist, the one she thinks no one saw. Silence on the line. Colonel, if she's what I think she is. I know exactly what she is, Captain. Harrington's voice was ice. Because I created them. All 39 of them. And Sterling. Sterling was one of my best. He hung up the phone and stared into the darkness. What are you doing here, Maya? He whispered to no one. What are you trying to prove? Outside, the fog continued to crawl across Camp Pendleton, and Maya Sterling continued to pretend she was nobody special. But the mask was cracking, and some secrets once exposed could never be hidden again. 2100 hours. Team planning. The map was spread across the table like a surgical patient. Every contour and elevation marked every possible approach, analyzed and debated. Cole stood at the head, grease pencil in hand, drawing lines with confident strokes. "Direct approach," he announced. "Through this canyon here. We move fast, hit them at 0600 during guard shift change. Overwhelming force, in and out before they know what happened." The other team members nodded. It was aggressive, bold, the kind of plan that sounded good in a briefing room. Maya saw the ambush waiting in that canyon like it was outlined in neon. "Thoughts, Sterling." Cole's voice challenged her to speak. She traced a different route with her finger. "This approach, Northern Ridge, keeps us on high ground. We observe for 12 hours, map their patrol patterns, identify weak points, infiltrate at night during the 2300 shift change, hit them when they're tired when visibility works in our favor." 12 hours of watching. Cole shook his head. "That's half our time budget. It's 12 hours of intelligence gathering. We go in blind, we're walking into whatever trap they've set. Or we go in fast and they don't have time to spring it." Maya met his eyes. "Speed doesn't beat preparation, Sergeant. In my experience, and how much experience is that exactly?" The question hung in the air. Cole's face flushed. The other team members shifted uncomfortably. Maya could have told him about Aleppo, about the 72 hours she'd spent in a sniper hide, not moving, barely breathing, waiting for a target that never showed because he'd changed vehicles at the last minute. She could have told him about Damascus, about coordinating an extraction under mortar fire while 3 different hostile factions tried to kill her and the asset she was protecting. She could have told him about the mathematics of violence, about the calculus you learned when every decision meant someone lived or died. But she didn't. "I'm sure you're right, Sergeant." Her voice was perfectly neutral. "Your plan. Your call." Cole studied her, trying to read something in her expression that wasn't there. "Damn right it is." He turned back to the map. "We move fast. We move hard. We get it done. Ranger School didn't teach me to sit on my ass and watch." Reese spoke up quietly. "Ma'am, I mean Sterling, that route you mentioned. Wouldn't it also give us better extraction options? Multiple escape routes instead of back the way we came?" Maya nodded. "It would." Cole slammed his hand on the map. "We're not running some covert op here. This is direct action. Get in, get out. End of story." He rolled up the map. "Everyone unprep your gear. Standard loadout. 200 rounds per man. Night vision, 2 MREs. Water for 72 hours. The team dispersed. Maya lingered, looking at the rolled map, seeing in her mind exactly how Cole's plan would fall apart. She could push harder, could make her case, could pull rank on experience even if she had no official authority. But Cole wouldn't listen. Young men rarely did, especially when their pride was involved. So she'd go along with the plan. And when it failed, because it would fail, she'd be ready to adapt, to survive, to complete the mission. The mark beneath her glove seemed to pulse with remembered pain. 39 stars, 39 operators, 39 people who'd learned the hard way that plans meant nothing when the bullets started flying. 14 still breathing. 25 ghosts who'd never come home. Maya pulled the glove tighter and went to prep her gear. Tomorrow, she'd find out which group she belonged to. 2300 hours. The barracks was dark except for red lens flashlights as candidates performed final equipment checks. The sound of Velcro and zippers and weapons being function tested filled the air. The quiet rituals of soldiers preparing for combat, even the simulated kind. Maya sat on her bunk, her gear arranged with precise efficiency. Rifle cleaned and oiled. Magazines loaded. First aid kit double-checked. The knife strapped where she could reach it with either hand. Everything exactly where it needed to be. Across the barracks, Cole was giving last-minute instructions. Maya half listened, already knowing what he'd say. Move fast, stay aggressive, trust your training. The door opened. Captain Shaw stepped inside, and the barracks immediately went quiet. He walked slowly down the center aisle, checking gear, offering occasional corrections. When he reached Maya's bunk, he stopped. Sterling. Sir? You ready for tomorrow? Yes, sir. Shaw glanced at her gear. Everything perfect. Everything positioned for maximum efficiency. The loadout of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Your team leader has a plan. Yes, sir. You agree with it? Maya looked up, met his eyes. It's his plan to make, sir. That's not what I asked. A long pause. The other candidates pretended not to listen while hanging on every word. No, sir, I don't agree with it. And when it goes sideways, then I'll adapt, sir. Shaw almost smiled. Almost. Shadow Viper taught you well? Maya's hand twitched toward her wrist, an instinctive movement she couldn't quite suppress. Sir, relax, Sterling. I'm not going to blow your cover. Shaw's voice dropped below hearing range of the others. But I will tell you this. There's someone else watching this exercise. Someone who's been observing since day one. And he's particularly interested in you. Who, sir? Colonel James Harrington, commander of this facility. Shaw's eyes bored into hers. And before he ran Camp Pendleton, he ran something else. Something that officially doesn't exist anymore. Something that left marks on the people who survived it. The world tilted. Harrington. Maya knew that name. Every Shadow Viper knew that name. Get some sleep, Shaw said, straightening. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. He walked away without looking back. Maya lay on her bunk and stared at the ceiling, her heart pounding against her ribs. James Harrington. The founder. The man who'd created Shadow Viper 25 years ago. The man who'd personally selected every operator for a quarter century. The man who'd looked her in the eye when she was 19 and said, "You have potential. Let's see if you survive long enough to use it." He was here, watching. And tomorrow, when she had to choose between maintaining her cover and keeping her team alive, he'd see exactly what kind of operator she'd become. Maya closed her eyes and forced herself to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The meditation technique she'd learned in a bombed-out building in Aleppo, waiting for an extraction that was 12 hours late. Sleep wouldn't come. It never did the night before action. So she lay there in the darkness, listening to the sounds of 28 men pretending they weren't terrified. And she waited. For 400. For the moment when everything would change. For the reckoning she'd been running from for 2 years. The mark on her wrist seemed to burn through the glove. 39 stars, 39 names, 39 choices that could never be taken back. And tomorrow, she'd make another one. The helicopter's rotors cut through the pre-dawn darkness like blades through flesh. Inside the UH-60 Black Hawk, 7 soldiers sat in silence, each locked in their own thoughts, the vibration rattling through their bones. Maya sat near the door, eyes closed, but not sleeping. Her mind ran through scenarios the way she'd been trained 4 years ago. Ambush points, fallback positions, fields of fire, the mathematics of survival that had become as natural as breathing. Cole sat across from her jaw, tight fingers drumming against his rifle stock. The bravado from the briefing room had faded. Now there was just the raw anticipation of a man about to lead people into danger. The crew chief held up 5 fingers. 5 minutes. Cole leaned forward, shouting over the rotor noise. Remember the plan, fast insertion canyon approach. Hit them at 0600 during shift change in and out. The team nodded. Maya said nothing. Reese caught her eye from 2 seats down. His face was pale in the red interior lighting. She gave him a small nod. Steady. Focus. He swallowed hard and looked away. The helicopter banked sharply. Maya's stomach dropped as they descended fast, the pilot using terrain masking to avoid theoretical radar detection. Through the open door, she could see nothing but black. No moon. Heavy cloud cover. The kind of darkness that swallowed sound and turned confident men into frightened children. The crew chief tapped his watch. 30 seconds. Maya pulled her night vision device down over her eyes. The world turned green and grainy. She could see trees rushing up to meet them. The small clearing that would be their landing zone. The absolute emptiness of the forest waiting to consume them. The skids touched Earth. Go, go, go! Team Alpha poured out of the helicopter weapons, up forming a defensive perimeter. Maya was last out, moving to her assigned position, covering their 6. The helicopter lifted immediately, rotors screaming, disappearing into the darkness like it had never existed. And then silence. The kind of silence that only exists in deep forest at 0400. No birds, no insects, just 7 people breathing too loud, trying to control their adrenaline. Cole's voice came through the radio, barely a whisper. "Com check." 6 clicks answered. Everyone operational. "Move out, wedge formation, Sterling take point." Maya felt surprise ripple through the team. Point position was the most dangerous, first to make contact, first to die if things went wrong. Giving it to her was either a test or a trap. She moved forward without hesitation. Rifle up. Eyes scanning through night vision. Every 10 steps she stopped. Listened. Looked. Moved again. Behind her the team followed, maintaining intervals. Branches snapping. Equipment rattling. The sounds of men trained for open desert trying to navigate dense forest. 20 minutes passed. Maya's internal clock tracked every second. She held up a fist. "Stop." Cole moved up beside her. "What?" Maya pointed ahead. 30 meters. The terrain funneled into a natural choke point, steep banks on both sides, only one way through. The canyon Cole had chosen. "That's our route," he whispered. "It's a kill zone. You see any up for?" Maya scanned the high ground. Nothing visible. No movement. No heat signatures through her thermal scope. But something was wrong. The air tasted different. Copper and ozone. The taste of anticipation. "They're there," she said. "I can feel it." "You can feel it." Cole's voice carried disbelief. "We don't have time for feelings, Sterling. We have a timeline." "Sergeant, I'm telling you, and I'm telling you to move. That's an order." Maya held his gaze for 3 seconds, then nodded. "Your call, Sergeant." She moved forward into the canyon, every instinct screaming. The team followed. They were 20 meters into the choke point when the world exploded. Simulated charges detonated on both sides. Thunder flash grenades that lit up the forest like noon and left their ears ringing. Red strobe lights appeared on 3 vests, instantly dead eliminated from the exercise. And then the OP-4 opened fire. Blank rounds, but the sound was real. The muzzle flashes were real. The absolute chaos of an L-shaped ambush was devastatingly real. Cole froze. Half a second. Maybe less. But in combat, half a second was eternity. Maya's voice cut through the confusion like a blade through silk. "Bound back pairs covering fire, move now." She didn't wait for permission. Dropped to one knee and fired a burst at the muzzle flashes on the left flank. Not aimed shots, suppressive fire. Make them duck. make them hesitate. By seconds. "Reese with me, that depression 10 meters back. Move," Reese responded instantly. Muscle memory from basic training overriding his fear. He ran while Maya covered, then dropped and returned fire while she moved. Textbook bounding Overwatch. The kind of drill they'd done 1,000 times, but never under pressure like this. The other surviving team members followed the pattern understanding without needing orders. Cole finally unfroze. Scrambled backward. Found his feet. Maya orchestrated the retreat with surgical precision. 2 bounds. 3. 4. The up-4 fire slackened as they broke contact. 5 bounds, and they were out of the kill zone, regrouping in a small depression that provided cover from direct fire. 4 soldiers left. 3 eliminated in the first 30 seconds. Cole was breathing hard, face red, even in the green tint of night vision. What the hell was that L-shaped ambush? Maya's voice was flat. Exactly what I said would happen. You think you could have done better? Maya met his eyes. Let him see exactly what she was thinking. Yes. The word hung between them like a knife. Reese spoke up, voice shaking. What do we do now? We've lost half the team. The mission continues, Maya said. Different approach, my approach. Cole's jaw worked, pride warring with reality. He looked at the 3 remaining team members, saw the way they were looking at Maya now, not with dismissal, but with something approaching hope. Fine. The word came out like it hurt. What's your plan? Maya pulled out her map, pointed with a red lens flashlight. We're here. The direct route is compromised. They'll have secondary ambush points all along that canyon. So we go around, north, follow this ridgeline. That adds 6 hours to our timeline. It keeps us alive to complete the mission. Cole stared at the map, at Maya, at the darkness surrounding them. Okay. He swallowed whatever else he wanted to say. Your plan's sterling, but this goes sideways, it's on you. Understood. Maya stood, checked her compass, oriented to the terrain. We move in file. Noise discipline from here on. Hand signals only unless we make contact. She looked at each of them in turn. Stay tight. Stay alert. The OPFOR knows we're out here now. They'll be hunting. She started moving north, uphill, the hard way. The team followed, not because Cole ordered them to, because they'd chosen to. 3 hours later, they reached the ridgeline. Maya called a halt in a thick stand of pine that provided concealment and a commanding view of the target village below. Her legs burned, her shoulders ached from the pack weight, but her mind was sharp-focused, running calculations that had become second nature. We observe for 12 hours, she whispered to Cole. Map their patrol patterns, count their numbers, identify shift changes. Then we plan infiltration. Cole looked like he wanted to argue, wanted to push for immediate action, but he'd learned. Okay, set up observation posts, 2-hour rotations. Maya positioned the team with the efficiency of someone who'd done this more times than she could count. Overlapping fields of view, maximum coverage with minimum exposure. She took the first watch herself, settling behind a fallen log that gave her a perfect view of the village. And she watched. The mock village was more sophisticated than she'd expected. Guard towers at 3 corners, roving patrols on predictable routes, fixed positions at key entry points, lights that would make night infiltration difficult, but not impossible. Whoever had designed this exercise knew what they were doing. Maya pulled out a small notebook and began sketching. Guard positions, patrol routes, timing between passes, the kind of intelligence gathering that seemed tedious until it saved your life. An hour passed. 2. Cole moved up beside her, relieving her position. You've done this before. Not a question. Real world, not training. Maya kept her eyes on the village. Yes. Where? Places that don't exist in operational logs. What unit? One that doesn't exist anymore. Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then, that mark on your wrist, I saw it yesterday, when your glove tore. Maya's hand moved instinctively to cover her left wrist. What about it? I counted the stars, 39 of them. Cole's voice was different now, quieter, almost reverent. What does that mean? Maya finally looked at him, saw the genuine curiosity beneath the ego, saw the soldier he might become if he survived long enough. Each star is a name, Sergeant. Someone who walked the same path I did. And how many are still walking? Maya turned back to the village. Not enough. The hours crawled past like wounded animals. Maya filled 6 pages with notes. Patrol patterns. Shift changes. Weak points in the perimeter. By 1800 hours, she had a complete picture of the village's defenses. And she'd found the vulnerability. North side, a blind spot where the guard tower sight lines didn't quite overlap. 18 seconds every hour when no one was watching. Not much, but enough. She briefed the team at 1900 using her sketches to explain the plan. We move at 2300 during shift change. Guards will be tired, ready to go off duty. Attention on the clock, not the perimeter. We infiltrate here. She pointed to the blind spot. 3-person entry team. One remains as overwatch with the radio. Total time inside the wire, 8 minutes maximum. 8 minutes. Reese's eyes went wide. Can we move that fast? We'll have to. Longer than 8 minutes, we lose the timing window. The next shift comes on and we're compromised. Cole studied the plan. Maya could see him searching for flaws, trying to reassert some control. But the plan was solid. Airtight. The product of 4 years doing exactly this kind of operation. Who's on entry? He asked. You, me, and Reese. Miller holds overwatch position. Why Reese? Because he moves quiet and he listens. Maya met Reese's eyes. And because sometimes the youngest soldier has the best instincts. Reese straightened slightly. Something that might have been pride flickered across his face. Cole nodded slowly. Okay, we run your plan. He paused, then added, Sterling, when we get back, I want to know what unit you really came from. Complete the mission first. Then we'll talk. They prepped their gear as the sun set. Maya checked her rifle for the 10th time, checked her magazines, checked her knife. The rituals of preparation. At 2200, they moved out. The approach took 90 minutes. Maya led them down from the ridgeline using a game trail, moving slow, testing each step before committing her weight. At 2340, they were in position. 50 meters from the perimeter. Maya could see the guard towers, the roving patrols, could hear voices and laughter, the casual confidence of soldiers who thought they had the advantage. She watched the guard patterns, timed them, waited. At 23:58, the shift change began. Move! They crossed the open ground in a low crouch, shadows flowing through shadows. Hit the wire fence during the 18-second window. Maya pulled out cutters, snipped 3 strands, peeled back the fence, slipped through. Inside the wire. The village was a maze of small buildings and narrow alleys. Maya moved like she'd memorized the layout because she had. 12 hours of observation burned into her memory. She led them to the building where the hostages were held. 2 guards outside, alert but bored. Maya signaled Cole and Reese to hold. Then she moved alone. using buildings for cover. Circling behind the guards, she got within 3 meters before they sensed anything. By then it was too late. "You're both dead. Don't move." The guards' eyes went wide. They'd never heard her, never seen her. She was just suddenly there. Maya zip-tied their hands, sat them down. "Stay quiet. You'll be released when we're clear." Inside the building, the hostages' role players posing as high-value targets looked genuinely shocked when Maya, Cole, and Reese burst through the door. "We're your extraction. On your feet. Move." The exfil was textbook. Back through the fence, across the open ground, into the tree line, 5 minutes inside the wire, 3 minutes under budget. They were clear. Or they should have been. Maya felt it first. That copper taste returning, that sense of wrongness prickling along her spine. She held up a fist. The team froze. Movement ahead. In the trees. Not ope, for the movement pattern was wrong. Too tactical. Too precise. And then she heard something that made her blood freeze. A voice. Accented. Eastern European. Speaking in rapid Polish or Czech. That wasn't standard training protocol. "Get down," Maya hissed. "Something's wrong." Before anyone could respond, 2 figures burst from the trees. They came in hard. Aggressive. The kind of contact that violated every safety protocol. Real tackles. Genuine violence. Reese went down first, slammed into a tree with force that made Maya hear bones crack. He screamed. Not a training scream. A real one. Something inside Maya snapped. The operators, and they were operators. She could see it in their movements, converged on the fallen team members. Maya intercepted the first one, 3 meters from Reese. She didn't think, didn't calculate. Just moved. Her left hand trapped his wrist. Her right elbow cracked against his temple. He dropped like his strings had been cut. The second one was better trained. He came in low, trying to grapple. Maya sprawled, caught his head twisted. Krav Maga neck crank. 3 seconds, and he was on the ground, gasping. A third appeared from nowhere. Fast. Professional. Maya's knife was in her hand before she consciously reached for it. She didn't use the blade, used the pommel. 1 strike to the solar plexus, 1 to the base of the skull. Down. 8 seconds. 3 operators. Neutralized. Maya stood over them, breathing hard, adrenaline singing through her veins. Her left glove had torn completely away during the fight. The mark was fully exposed. The black serpent coiled around the lightning bolt. 39 stars circling it like a crown. One of the downed operators looked up at her wrist. His eyes went wide. "Shadow Viper," he whispered in accented English. "We thought it was legend." Maya felt the world tilt. They knew. These weren't standard OPFOR. They were something else. Something that had specifically targeted her team. Cole's voice came from behind her, shaking. "Sterling, what the hell did you just do?" Before she could answer, Reese groaned from where he'd fallen. His arm was bent at a wrong angle. Broken. And then every radio in the area crackled to life simultaneously. A voice Maya hadn't heard in 2 years. Deep, authoritative, unmistakable. All stations, this is tactical command, stop the drill. I say again, stop the drill." The forest went absolutely silent. Exercise terminated immediately. All elements return to base. Medical teams stand by. All participants RTB via fastest route. Cole keyed his radio with trembling hands. "Command, this is Team Alpha. We have a casualty. Broken arm. Request immediate medevac." Medevac en route Alpha. Remain in position for extraction. Static. Then the voice came back, different now. Quieter. Directed. Sterling. Maya's heart stopped. Sterling, this is Colonel Harrington. Stay exactly where you are. I'm coming to you personally. Cole stared at her. He knows your name. The base commander knows your name. Maya looked down at her exposed wrist, at the mark that had defined her life for 4 years. Yes, she said quietly. He does. The sound of helicopter rotors grew in the distance, and Maya Sterling stood in the darkness surrounded by the evidence of what she really was waiting for the man who had made her. The secret was out. Everything was about to change. The helicopter broke through the tree canopy like a predator descending on wounded prey. Spotlight blazing. Rotor wash bending the pines. The noise was deafening, disorienting, exactly what it was designed to be. Maya didn't move. She stood over the 3 operators. She'd neutralized her exposed wrist, visible to anyone who cared to look, and waited. Cole was shouting something. She couldn't hear him over the rotors. Didn't matter. Nothing he said would change what was about to happen. The Black Hawk touched down 30 meters away. The side door slid open before the skids fully settled. And there he was. Colonel James Harrington. 72 years old. Silver hair cut high and tight. Face like granite carved by decades of decisions that cost lives. He moved with the precision of a man who'd spent 50 years in uniform, every step deliberate, every movement calculated. He walked directly toward Maya, ignoring Cole, ignoring Reese, who was still groaning on the ground, clutching his broken arm, ignoring the medics who'd jumped from the helicopter behind him. He stopped 3 feet away. His eyes went to her wrist first, lingered on the mark. The serpent, the lightning bolt, the 39 stars. Then he looked at her face. Maya Sterling, he said. His voice cut through the rotor noise like it was nothing. Operator 17, recruited 2020, 4 years active service, 41 operations, 0 failures. He paused. Until Syria. Maya felt the words land like physical blows. She kept her face neutral, but her heart was hammering so hard she was certain he could see it pulsing in her throat. Sir, walk with me. It wasn't a request. Maya followed him away from the team, away from the medics loading Reese onto a stretcher, away from Cole, who was staring at her like she'd grown a second head. Harrington stopped when they were out of earshot, turned to face her. 23 years old, he said. 4 years out of the program. Teaching nothing, doing nothing, hiding behind a transfer to military police admin. His eyes bored into hers. What the hell are you doing here, Sterling? I needed to know, sir. Know what? If I could still do it. Maya heard her own voice steady despite the chaos inside her. If I wasn't just broken. Broken. Harrington's jaw tightened. You think you're broken, aren't I? After what happened, you're the only Shadow Viper operator in 25 years who made the right choice. His voice dropped to something almost gentle. Almost. You're not broken, Sterling. You evolved, and that terrifies you more than being damaged ever could. Maya's composure cracked. Just a fraction. Just enough. Those people tonight, the ones who attacked my team, they weren't Standard OP4. No, they weren't. Who were they? Harrington's expression shifted. Something cold moved behind his eyes. That's classified. Sir, with respect, they knew what I was. They recognized the mark. They spoke Polish or Czech. They used Eastern European combat doctrine. Maya stepped closer. They specifically targeted my team. That wasn't coincidence. No, Harrington agreed. It wasn't. Then tell me what's going on. Silence stretched between them. The helicopter's rotors had powered down to idle. In the distance, Maya could hear Cole arguing with someone, probably the medics, trying to keep him away from whatever was happening. We occasionally allow Allied Special Operations units to participate in our training exercises, Harrington said finally. Gives our candidates exposure to different tactical doctrines. This rotation we had observers from a European partner nation. Observers don't attack training participants with lethal intent. No, they don't. So what were they? Harrington's face hardened. A test, one you weren't supposed to pass. Maya felt ice crystallize in her stomach. What kind of test? The kind that determines whether a dormant asset is still operational, whether 4 years of hiding has dulled the edge or just sharpened it. Harrington met her eyes. You neutralized 3 trained operators in 8 seconds sterling. 3 men who've killed people in real combat. You didn't hesitate, didn't hold back. You went full Shadow Viper in defense of your team. They were going to hurt Reese. I know. I couldn't let that happen. I know that too. Harrington's voice softened again. That's why I stopped the exercise. Not to protect your secret. To protect them. If I hadn't called it off, you would have killed someone before the night was over. The words hit Maya like a punch to the chest. Because he was right. She'd felt it in those 8 seconds. The old instincts rising. The cold calculation that reduced human beings to targets. The part of her that knew exactly how to end a life and had done so more times than she could count. I wouldn't have— Yes, you would. Harrington cut her off. I trained you. Remember, I know what you're capable of. I know what all 39 of you were capable of. He paused. That's why only 14 are still breathing. Maya's throat tightened. Why are you here, sir, really? Because I've spent the last 10 years trying to undo what I built. Harrington's voice carried weight she'd never heard before. Shadow Viper had a 100% mission success rate. We also had a 64% mortality rate within 5 years of operators leaving the program. Killed in action. Suicide. Accidents that weren't accidents. He looked at the mark on her wrist. I created weapons, Sterling. Perfect, efficient, deadly weapons. And then I watched them destroy themselves because I never taught them how to be human again. His eyes met hers. You're different. You walked away. You chose humanity over the mission. And you survived. I didn't survive, sir. I've been dying slowly for 2 years. Then why are you here? Maya didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because the truth was too complicated for words. Come with me, Harrington said. There's something you need to see. He started walking toward the helicopter. Maya followed. Cole intercepted them before they'd gone 10 steps. Sir, what the hell is going on? His voice was ragged. Who is she? What did I just see? Harrington stopped, studied Cole with the same assessing gaze he'd once used on Maya. Sergeant Cole, Team Alpha Leader, Ranger School Class of 22, 1 combat tour Kandahar Province, distinguished himself during an ambush in Arkhandab District, saved 3 men by calling in danger close air support. Cole's eyes widened. How do you— I know everything about everyone on this base, Sergeant. It's my job. Harrington glanced at Maya. What you saw tonight was an operator performing at a level you didn't know existed. Sterling is one of 39 people recruited to a program that officially never existed. She's done things you'll never read about in any report, and she just saved your team from a threat that should never have been on this base. Cole looked at Maya. Really looked at her, like he was seeing her for the first time. Those men, the ones who attacked us, you took them down in 8 seconds, Maya said quietly. I counted. How— Training, Sergeant. A lot of training. Cole shook his head slowly. I've trained with Force Recon, with Delta operators, with SEALs who've done things I couldn't imagine. None of them move like you. Different program, different methods, different results. Cole's voice had changed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something approaching awe. When we hit that ambush, I froze. You didn't. You took command in half a second, gave orders, got us out. He swallowed hard. I would have gotten everyone killed. Probably. And the honesty hit him like cold water, but he didn't flinch. Then thank you for not letting me. Maya nodded once. You've got good instincts, Cole. You just need to learn when to trust them and when to trust your team. Harrington touched her shoulder. We need to go. There are decisions to be made. Maya followed him to the helicopter. Behind her, she heard Cole's voice, quiet. Sterling. She turned. Whatever happens next, I'm glad you were on my team. She didn't answer. Just nodded and climbed into the Black Hawk. The flight back to main base took 7 minutes. Maya sat across from Harrington, neither of them speaking. The silence was heavy with unasked questions and unspoken truths. When they landed, 2 military police vehicles were waiting on the tarmac. Maya's stomach dropped. Am I being arrested? No. Harrington stepped out of the helicopter. But we need to have a conversation in a secure location. What I'm about to tell you is classified above your current clearance level. I don't have a clearance level anymore, sir. I'm a civilian contractor doing administrative work. That's about to change. They walked through corridors Maya didn't recognize, past security checkpoints that required Harrington's biometrics at every door. Finally, they reached a room with no windows, reinforced walls, and electronic countermeasures humming in the background. Harrington closed the door, locked it, turned to face her. Sit down, Sterling. Maya sat. Harrington remained standing, pacing slowly, gathering his thoughts. 25 years ago, I created Shadow Viper because I believed the United States needed operators who could do things that regular special forces couldn't. Operators who could infiltrate, eliminate, disappear. Operators with no official existence, no support structure, no safety net. He stopped pacing. I recruited 39 people over that time, trained them personally, sent them into situations that would have broken anyone else, and they succeeded every single time. His voice hardened. What I didn't account for was the cost, the psychological damage, the moral injuries that accumulated operation after operation until my operators couldn't function anymore. Maya knew the numbers, had lived them. 14 still alive, she said quietly. 14. Out of 39. And of those 14, only 6 are functional. The rest are in various stages of breakdown, addiction, isolation, institutionalization. Harrington's eyes met hers. You're one of the 6, Sterling. You walked away damaged but not destroyed. Do you know how rare that is? I don't feel functional, sir. No. You feel broken. You feel like you failed because you chose to save a family instead of completing a mission. You've spent 2 years punishing yourself for being human. That mission was a success. Harrington's voice cracked like a whip. The intelligence we lost was recovered through other means 6 months later. The family you saved is alive and thriving. The mother runs an education program for women in Jordan. The son is studying engineering. The daughter wants to be a doctor. He leaned forward. You gave them futures, Sterling. The CIA called it failure. I call it the first right decision any Shadow Viper ever made. Maya felt something crack inside her chest. A wall she'd built 2 years ago, brick by brick, starting to crumble. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you. For what? Harrington pulled a folder from inside his jacket, dropped it on the table between them. Special Operations Command wants to build a new training paradigm. Not for operators like you, that program is dead and should stay dead. For the next generation of Special Forces soldiers, teaching them not just how to operate, but how to think, how to make hard choices, how to balance mission success with moral responsibility. Maya stared at the folder without touching it. They want instructors who've been there, who've done things they can't talk about, who understand the cost of excellence and can teach others to pay it without being destroyed. And you want me. Captain Shaw requested you specifically, said modern special operations needs people who know when not to pull the trigger. Harrington's voice softened. I agreed with him. You're exactly what we need, Sterling, not because of what you did for Shadow Viper, because of what you did in Syria, because you chose humanity when everything in your training screamed to do otherwise. Maya finally touched the folder. Opened it. Inside was a contract. Senior instructor position. 1-year term. I'm 23 years old, she said. These candidates are older than me. They won't respect someone my age. They'll respect what you've done, what you've survived, what you chose. Harrington sat down across from her. Maya, I spent 30 years building something that destroyed people. Let me spend whatever time I have left building something that saves them. Help me. The words hung in the air. Maya looked at the contract, at the signature line waiting for her name. The candidates out there. Cole, Reese, the others. They saw what I did tonight. They saw the mark. By morning, everyone on this base will know. Yes, you want me to stop hiding. I want you to stop pretending you're something you're not. Harrington leaned forward. You're a Shadow Viper, Sterling. One of the most lethal operators ever trained. But you're also human. You proved that in Syria. You proved it again tonight when you protected your team instead of maintaining your cover. I didn't think. I just reacted. Exactly. Your instinct wasn't to preserve secrecy. It was to protect people. Harrington stood. That's what I want you to teach. Not how to kill efficiently. How to choose wisely. How to complete missions without losing your soul. Maya stared at the contract. 39 stars on her wrist. 39 names she'd memorized. 25 of them ghosts now. Could she really teach others to avoid becoming the same, I need time to think? You have until 800. Report to my office with your decision. Harrington moved to the door. Whatever you choose, I want you to know something. Sir, I recruited 47 people to Shadow Viper over the years. I've regretted most of those decisions, but not you, Sterling. Never you. He paused at the door. You were the best thing to come out of that program. Not because of what you could do, because of who you chose to be. He left. Maya sat alone in the secure room, the contract in front of her, the weight of everything pressing down like gravity had doubled. The mark on her wrist seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. 39 stars. 39 names. 39 choices that could never be taken back. And now she had to make another one. Teach others to walk the path she'd walked. Show them the cost, help them avoid the traps that had claimed so many of her brothers and sisters. Or walk away again. Disappear into anonymity. Keep pretending she was nobody special until the pretense became truth. Maya pulled out her phone, stared at the screen. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she typed a message to a number she hadn't called in 2 years. I found what I was looking for. I know what I need to do now. She didn't wait for a reply. At 0745, Maya walked across the parade ground toward Harrington's office. The sun was rising, painting Camp Pendleton in shades of amber and gold. Candidates were forming up for morning PT. Some of them recognized her. Word had spread. She could see it in their eyes: curiosity, awe, fear. The woman who'd dropped 3 operators in 8 seconds. The woman with 39 stars on her wrist. The woman who'd been hiding among them for 3 weeks, pretending to be nothing. Maya didn't hide anymore. Her left sleeve was rolled up, the mark visible to anyone who looked. She reached Harrington's office. Knocked. "Enter." He was behind his desk, reading reports. Looked up when she came in. His eyes went to her exposed wrist. Something that might have been satisfaction crossed his face. "You've decided." Maya set the signed contract on his desk. "1 year, sir. Then I reevaluate." Harrington picked up the contract, examined her signature, nodded once. "That's what I said in 1995. 30 years later, I'm still here." "I'm not you, sir." "No, you're better." He stood extended his hand. "Welcome to the team, Senior Instructor Sterling." She shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm. The grip of a man who'd finally found something worth building instead of destroying. "What happens now?" "Now?" Harrington smiled slightly. "Now we go tell those candidates who you really are, and then we get to work." He moved toward the door, paused. "Sterling, one more thing." "Sir." "That family in Syria, the ones you saved, I've kept track of them. The daughter, the one who wants to be a doctor. She sent a letter through back channels last year. She wanted to thank the person who saved her life." Maya's throat tightened. "What did she say?" "She said she doesn't remember your face, but she remembers your hands. How steady they were. How gentle, even when everything was chaos." Harrington's voice softened. "She said those hands made her believe she would survive. Made her believe there were still good people in the world." Maya couldn't speak. "That's what you did in 8 seconds of terror, Sterling. You made a little girl believe in humanity." He opened the door. "Now imagine what you could do with a year." They walked out together into the morning light. And somewhere in Jordan, a young woman who would become a doctor was already changing the world, because 4 years ago, a 23-year-old operator chose humanity over mission. That was the legacy of Shadow Viper number 17. That was the legacy Maya Sterling was about to pass forward. The parade ground was packed. Every candidate from every team stood in formation, still wearing their field gear, dirt and exhaustion etched into their faces. Word had spread through the base like wildfire. Something unprecedented had happened. The exercise had been terminated. Someone had been exposed. Maya walked beside Harrington toward the front of the formation. She could feel hundreds of eyes tracking her movement, could hear the whispered conversations dying as she approached. Cole stood at the head of Team Alpha's remnants. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes never left Maya's face. Harrington stepped onto the small platform at the formation's head. Maya stopped beside him, hands clasped behind her back. Stance military perfect, at ease. The formation relaxed slightly. The tension didn't. "In 32 years of running special operations training, I have never terminated an exercise early. Not for weather, not for injuries, not for any administrative reason." Harrington's voice carried across the parade ground like thunder. "Last night was the first time." He let that sink in. "Some of you witnessed what happened. Some of you have heard rumors. I'm here to give you the truth." He turned slightly toward Maya. "This is Maya Sterling. For the past 3 weeks, she's been one of you. A candidate. A transfer. Someone most of you dismissed as a desk jockey who didn't belong." Murmurs rippled through the formation. You were wrong. Harrington's voice hardened. Sterling, show them. Maya raised her left wrist. The mark was clearly visible, the black serpent, the lightning bolt, the 39 stars circling like a crown of ghosts. This mark represents a program that officially does not exist. A program I founded 25 years ago. Deep cover operations in denied territories across 4 continents. 39 operators selected over that time. Average operational life expectancy, 4.2 years. The formation went absolutely still. The program was called Shadow Viper. It conducted operations in places and times that remain classified. Operations that will never be declassified. Operations that saved American lives in ways that can never be publicly acknowledged. Harrington turned to face Maya directly. Maya Sterling was recruited to Shadow Viper at 19 years old. She was a military police officer who demonstrated exceptional aptitude during circumstances I cannot discuss. She served for 4 years, 41 operations. Aleppo, Damascus, Mosul, places most of you have only read about in briefing documents. Maya kept her eyes forward. Military bearing. Don't react. The mark on her wrist contains 39 stars, 1 for each Shadow Viper operator ever certified. It's a memorial, a reminder, a promise to carry the memory of those who didn't survive. Harrington's voice dropped. Of those 39 operators, only 14 are still alive. The rest died in the field or couldn't survive the transition back to normal life. The cost of excellence is paid in blood and broken minds. He paused. Let the weight settle. Team Alpha, front and center. Cole Reese with his arm in a sling, and the 2 surviving team members stepped forward. Their faces showed varying degrees of shock and awe. Sergeant Cole, during last night's exercise, what happened when your team was ambushed? Cole swallowed. We walked into a kill zone exactly where Sterling predicted, sir. I froze. She took command. Organized our retreat. Saved the mission. Did she ask permission? No, sir. She just did it. We followed because she knew what she was doing. Harrington nodded. That's leadership, Sergeant. The kind that comes from competence, not rank. He turned to Reese. Private Reese, when those operators attacked your team, the ones who weren't supposed to be there, what did Sterling do? Reese's voice shook slightly. She protected me, sir. I went down. They were going to hurt me bad. He paused, searching for words. She became something else. Took down 3 of them before I could blink. Then she checked on me first. Made sure I was okay before doing anything else. She chose her teammate over maintaining her cover. Yes, sir. Harrington addressed the full formation. That is what separates good operators from great ones. Good operators complete the mission. Great operators complete the mission while protecting their people. The best operators know when the mission isn't worth the cost. He stepped back. Sterling left Shadow Viper 2 years ago, after her final operation. I'm going to tell you why, because you deserve to understand what excellence actually looks like. Maya felt her heart rate spike. She hadn't expected this. Hadn't expected him to tell them everything. Her mission was to extract a CIA officer embedded with local forces in Syria. The officer had intelligence critical to ongoing operations. But when Sterling reached the extraction point, she found the officer protecting a family, a mother and 2 children who'd sheltered him when his cover was blown. The parade ground was so quiet, Maya could hear her own pulse. Sterling had a choice. Extract the officer alone, complete the mission, get the intelligence back to command, or extract the entire family, which would compromise her approach route and exponentially increase the risk of failure. Harrington's voice dropped. She chose the family. All of them. It took 6 hours to move them through hostile territory. During that movement, they were engaged by enemy forces. The CIA officer was killed protecting the family. The intelligence was lost. Maya felt the familiar weight settling on her chest. The memory of that night. The officer's blood on her hands. His last words. The CIA called it mission failure. They wanted Sterling reprimanded, discharged, erased. Harrington turned to face her. I disagreed. I told them that for the first time in 25 years, a Shadow Viper operator had made the right choice, not the tactical choice, the human one. His eyes held hers. That family is alive today because of what Sterling did. The mother runs an education program for women in Jordan. The son is studying engineering. The daughter wants to be a doctor. His voice softened. Those are the metrics that matter. Not intelligence reports, not mission parameters. Lives saved, futures created. Maya felt tears threatening, forced them back. Not here, not now. Harrington addressed the formation one final time. Maya Sterling spent 2 years believing she'd failed, believing she was broken. She came here to find out if she could still function as an operator. He almost smiled. She can. Better than anyone I've ever trained. But more importantly, she proved something else, that it's possible to be lethal and human at the same time. That operators don't have to choose between effectiveness and conscience. He straightened. Which is why, effective immediately, Maya Sterling is the new senior instructor for Advanced Special Operations Training. She will be teaching you not just how to operate, but how to think, how to make impossible choices, how to complete missions without losing your souls. The formation erupted in whispers. Maya saw Cole's expression shift from shock to something that might have been pride. Reese was grinning despite his broken arm. Dismissed to barracks. Formation at 0600 for exercise debrief. The candidates dispersed, but slowly. Many of them lingered, watching Maya, wanting to approach, but uncertain. Cole was the first to step forward. Ma'am. Sergeant, he extended his hand. I owe you an apology. I underestimated you from the moment you arrived, made assumptions based on size and gender and my own ego. Maya shook his hand. You learned. That's what matters. You saved my team. Probably saved me from washing out or getting someone killed. You would have figured it out eventually. Cole shook his head. No, I wouldn't have. I was too stubborn, too convinced I knew everything. He released her hand. Will you teach me? Really teach me? That depends. On what? On whether you're willing to actually listen this time. Something shifted in Cole's face, the last remnants of ego dissolving into something genuine. Yes, ma'am, I am. Reese approached next, his good arm cradling the sling. Ma'am, I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything. How's the arm? Broken in 2 places. They say it'll heal in 8 weeks. He looked at her with undisguised awe. You took down 3 operators in 8 seconds. I watched it happen and I still don't believe it. Believe it, Private. And understand something, what you saw wasn't magic. It was training, a lot of training, and choices made in the moment based on that training. Could I learn to do that? Maya studied his face. Young, eager, full of potential and completely ignorant of the cost. Maybe, if you're willing to pay the price. What price? The one you don't know you're paying until it's too late. Maya's voice softened. Reese, you're a good soldier. You've got instincts. But the path I walked, it takes things from you. Things you don't get back. Think carefully before you decide you want it. Reese nodded slowly. I will, ma'am. The parade ground emptied gradually. Maya stood alone, watching the candidates disperse, feeling the weight of what had just happened settling onto her shoulders. Harrington appeared beside her. "How do you feel?" "Exposed. Terrified." She paused. "Relieved." "The relief is the important part. You've been carrying that secret like a disease. Now it's out. Now you can breathe." These candidates, they're looking at me like I'm some kind of legend, like I'm not human." "Then teach them otherwise. Show them that legends bleed, that the best operators are the ones who understand their own limitations." Maya looked at her wrist. The mark seemed different now, less like a brand, more like a badge. "What about the men who attacked my team, the European operators?" Harrington's expression darkened. "They've been detained pending investigation. Their commander and I have already had a conversation about acceptable training boundaries." "Were they testing me, specifically me?" "Yes." "Why?" Harrington was quiet for a long moment. "There are elements within our intelligence community who believe Shadow Viper should be reactivated, that the current threat environment demands operators of that caliber again." Maya felt ice form in her stomach. "And I've spent 10 years trying to bury that program. I have no intention of resurrecting it." His eyes met hers. "But not everyone agrees with me. Some people saw your performance last night and got ideas." "What kind of ideas?" "The kind that would pull you back into a world you escaped. The kind that would turn you into a weapon again, instead of a teacher." Maya's hands clenched at her sides. "That's not happening." "No, it's not. Because as of this morning, you're officially assigned to my command. Anyone who wants access to you goes through me first." Harrington's voice hardened. "And I have very strong opinions about who gets that access." "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me. Just do the job. Teach these candidates what you know. Help them become warriors instead of weapons. That's how we prevent Shadow Viper from ever being needed again." 3 days later, Maya stood in front of her first class. 24 candidates sat in a classroom that had been converted into a tactical operations center. Screens displayed maps, after-action reports, operational footage from missions that had been partially declassified for training purposes. Cole sat in the front row. Reese was there too, his arm still in a sling. The others were a mix of Rangers Special Forces candidates and Naval Special Warfare personnel. All of them were watching Maya with the intensity of people who knew they were about to learn something important. "Lesson 1, Maya said. Her voice was steady, controlled. The voice of someone who'd done this before, even if she hadn't. The difference between completing the mission and doing the right thing. She picked up a marker, wrote on the whiteboard behind her. Sometimes they're the same. Sometimes they're not. Learning which is which will save your life. Or your soul. Preferably both. A hand went up. One of the SEAL candidates. "Ma'am, with respect, in my training, the mission always comes first. Deviation from mission parameters is failure." "Is it?" Maya set down the marker. "Let me tell you about an operator I knew. Shadow Viper number 7. Best sniper I ever saw. Perfect mission completion rate. 0 hesitation. 0 doubt." She paused. "He killed himself 3 months after leaving the program. Put his rifle in his mouth on a Tuesday morning because he couldn't live with what he'd done. Couldn't reconcile the person he'd been with the person he wanted to be." The classroom went silent. Mission success doesn't mean anything if you can't survive it. And I'm not talking about physical survival. I'm talking about coming home whole, being able to look at yourself in the mirror, being able to sleep without seeing the faces of everyone you've killed. She moved to the front of a desk, leaned against it. "I've completed 41 operations. I've killed people in ways that would give you nightmares. I've done things that will never appear in any report because they're too classified to exist." Her voice dropped. And the operation that changed everything, the one that made me who I am now, was the one I supposedly failed. Cole spoke up. The Syrian extraction. The family you saved. Yes. By every tactical measure, it was a disaster. The primary objective died. The intelligence was lost. I violated mission parameters at every level. But the family lived. The family lived. Maya straightened. And that matters more than any intelligence report, more than any mission success metric. Because at the end of the day, we're not fighting for abstractions. We're fighting for people. Real people with real lives who deserve to exist. The SEAL candidate raised his hand again. How do we know when to deviate? When to choose people over parameters? You won't know. Not until you're in the moment. Not until you're looking at a choice that has no good options. Maya's eyes swept the room. What I can teach you is how to think, how to evaluate, how to make the best decision possible with incomplete information and live with the consequences. She turned back to the whiteboard. The next 8 months are going to break you. Not physically, that's the easy part. Mentally, emotionally. I'm going to put you in situations where there's no right answer, where someone dies no matter what you choose. And you're going to have to make the call anyway. Why? Reese asked quietly. Maya looked at him. Because that's what real operations are. Impossible choices with permanent consequences. And if you can't handle that in training, you definitely can't handle it in the field. She wrote another phrase on the board. The cost of getting it right, and the cost of getting it wrong. Your homework for tomorrow, write down the worst decision you've ever made, the one that keeps you awake at night, the one you can't forgive yourself for. And then we're going to discuss why you made it, what you could have done differently, and how to carry that weight without being crushed by it. The class shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't what they'd expected. Dismissed. The candidates filed out. Cole lingered by the door. Sterling. Cole. That operator you mentioned. Number 7. What was his name? Maya was quiet for a moment. David. His name was David Chen. He was 28 years old. He had a daughter he'd never met because he was deployed for the first 2 years of her life. Her voice tightened. His star is 3rd from the left on my wrist. I touch it every morning when I wake up. Cole's expression shifted. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Learn from it. David was the best at what he did, but nobody ever taught him how to be anything else. By the time he realized he needed help, it was too late. Is that why you're doing this teaching? It's one reason. Maya met his eyes. The other reason is that I don't want to create more ghosts. There are already too many stars on my wrist. I don't want to add more. Cole nodded slowly. I'll see you tomorrow, ma'am. Cole, he stopped at the door. That assignment, the worst decision. Don't lie to yourself when you write it. I'll know. How? Maya almost smiled. Because I've made enough bad decisions to recognize the feeling. And the first step to learning from them is admitting they happened. Cole left. Maya stood alone in the empty classroom, staring at the whiteboard at the words she'd written. The cost of getting it right, and the cost of getting it wrong. She touched her wrist, felt the raised edges of the tattoo through her skin. 39 stars, 14 still breathing, 25 ghosts who would never leave. But maybe if she did this right, there wouldn't be any more. Maybe the next generation would come home whole. That was worth the cost, worth the exposure, worth everything. Maya erased the whiteboard and started preparing for tomorrow's lesson. The ghosts were still there, but now they had purpose. 6 months changed everything. Maya stood at the edge of the parade ground, watching a new class of candidates run through the obstacle course. Her hands were clasped behind her back, her posture relaxed but alert. The stance of someone who no longer needed to prove anything. Cole appeared beside her, clipboard in hand. He'd become her assistant instructor 3 months ago, after completing the selection course with the highest scores in 5 years. The arrogant sergeant she'd dropped in 2 seconds was gone, replaced by someone who listened more than he spoke. "Class 18 is showing improvement," he said, "particularly in the tactical decision-making modules." "Which candidates?" "Peterson surprised me. She froze on the first scenario, but she's adapted faster than anyone I've seen. Hartley's still struggling with the moral calculus exercises." Maya nodded. "Schedule individual sessions with both. Peterson needs confidence building. Hartley needs to understand that hesitation isn't the same as weakness." "Yes, ma'am." They watched the candidates in silence for a moment. One of them caught Maya's attention, a young woman, 24 years old, former military police. She moved through the obstacles with efficient grace, never wasting motion, always calculating the optimal path. "That's Rodriguez," Cole said, following Maya's gaze. "First week. The others underestimated her." "I noticed. She dropped Sergeant Morrison in CQC training yesterday. 2.3 seconds. Textbook momentum redirect." Maya felt something shift in her chest. A recognition she couldn't quite name. "Where'd she train? File says Standard Army Combatives, but that's not where she learned what she did yesterday." "No, it's not." Cole was quiet for a moment. "She reminds me of someone." Maya didn't respond. She didn't need to. The obstacle course ended. Rodriguez finished 4th overall, middle of the pack, unremarkable. But Maya had watched her hold back, had seen the moment she'd calculated exactly how fast she could go without standing out. Classic shadow viper behavior. Blend in. Don't draw attention. Assess the environment before revealing capabilities. "I want her file on my desk by 1400, Maya said. "Yes, ma'am." Cole left. Maya continued watching the candidates gather their gear, her mind running through possibilities she didn't want to consider. Harrington had promised Shadow Viper was dead, had promised no one would be recruited again. But promises were fragile things. And the people who'd wanted to reactivate the program, the ones who'd sent those European operators to test her, they were still out there. Still watching. Still waiting. Maya touched her wrist. The mark pulsed with remembered pain. If Rodriguez was what Maya suspected, there were conversations that needed to happen. Questions that needed answers. And possibly a confrontation that would change everything again. The afternoon sun was setting when Maya knocked on Harrington's office door. "Enter." He was behind his desk reading reports. The same position she'd found him in 6 months ago, when he'd offered her a choice that had redefined her life. "Sterling, sit down." Maya sat. "I need to ask you something, sir." "About Rodriguez." Maya's eyes narrowed. "You already know." "I know everything that happens on this base." Harrington set down his pen. "And I know what you're thinking. You're wrong." Rodriguez isn't Shadow Viper. The program is dead. I made sure of it." "Then explain how a 24-year-old military police officer executes a perfect momentum redirect using techniques that aren't taught anywhere except by you." Harrington leaned back. "For the last 6 months." Maya stopped. Processed. "You're saying she learned it here?" "I'm saying the techniques you've been teaching are spreading. Candidates who complete your course are sharing knowledge with others. Rodriguez spent 2 weeks training with a graduate of your first class before she arrived." The realization hit Maya like cold water. "I'm creating them, without meaning to. I'm teaching the next generation of— No. Harrington's voice sharpened. You're teaching them skills. What they do with those skills is their choice. That's the difference between what you're building and what I built. He stood, moved to the window. Shadow Viper operators had no choice. We broke them down and rebuilt them as weapons. They followed orders because they'd been conditioned to follow orders. Free will was a liability we trained out of them. He turned to face Maya. Your candidates choose. They learn the skills, but they also learn judgment. Consequence. The weight of decision. Rodriguez isn't becoming Shadow Viper. She's becoming what Shadow Viper should have been, effective and human at the same time. Maya felt the tension in her shoulders ease slightly. I need to be sure, sir. Then talk to her. Evaluate her yourself. That's what instructors do. Harrington returned to his desk. But Sterling, remember why you're doing this. Not to prevent the next generation from being capable, to prevent them from being destroyed by that capability. Maya nodded slowly. Yes, sir. Dismissed. She found Rodriguez in the equipment shed, cleaning her rifle with methodical precision. The younger woman looked up as Maya approached, her expression carefully neutral. Ma'am? Rodriguez, walk with me. They moved outside, away from the other candidates, toward the empty parade ground. The sun had fully set, now stars beginning to emerge against the darkening sky. You held back on the obstacle course today, Maya said. Rodriguez's step faltered almost imperceptibly. Ma'am, you could have finished first, maybe second. Instead, you finished fourth, deliberately unremarkable. Silence. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. I don't know what you mean, ma'am. Yes, you do. Maya stopped walking, turned to face her. Where did you really learn to fight? Rodriguez met her eyes. Something shifted in her expression, a calculation, a decision. Master Sergeant Chen, ma'am. Before he was KIA, he ran an unofficial training program at Fort Hood. Selected personnel only. Off the books. Maya felt the name hit her like a physical blow. Chen. David Chen. Shadow Viper number 7. When was this? 3 years ago. I was 19. Fresh out of MP training. He saw something in me and offered to teach me. How long did you train with him? 8 months. Then he deployed and— Rodriguez's voice tightened. I heard he died 6 months later. They said it was a training accident. Maya's heart was pounding. David had been training people, passing on Shadow Viper techniques before he died, building something of his own. What exactly did he teach you? Movement, assessment, decision-making under pressure, how to read a room in 3 seconds, how to neutralize threats without killing if possible. Rodriguez paused. He said it was important to know when not to use what he was teaching, that the skills were only half of it. The judgment was the other half. Maya felt tears threatening. David had understood. Before the end, before the darkness took him, he'd understood what Shadow Viper should have been, and he'd tried to build it himself. He talked about you, Rodriguez said quietly. What? He never used your name. But he talked about an operator who'd made the right choice when everyone else would have made the wrong one. Said she was the only one who got it right. Rodriguez's eyes met Maya's. He said if I ever met her, I should learn everything I could. Because she was what the rest of them should have been. Maya couldn't speak. The weight of those words pressed down on her chest like gravity had tripled. David had been thinking about her. In his last months, he'd been trying to create what she represented. Trying to pass forward the lesson she'd taught without knowing she'd taught it. Why are you here, Rodriguez? To finish what he started, ma'am. Rodriguez's voice strengthened. He believed operators could be effective without being destroyed, that the skills could be taught without the damage. I want to prove he was right. Maya looked at this young woman the same age she'd been when Harrington recruited her and saw something she hadn't expected. Hope. Not the naive hope of someone who didn't understand the cost. The hard, informed hope of someone who'd seen the price and chosen to pay it anyway. Chen was right, Maya said finally. About all of it. The skills are only half. The judgment is what matters. The ability to choose correctly in impossible moments. Can you teach me, really teach me? Maya was quiet for a long moment. I can teach you what I know, what I've learned. The techniques and the thinking and the weight of carrying both. She met Rodriguez's eyes. But I can't teach you how to survive it. That part you have to figure out yourself. I understand. No, you don't. Not yet. Maya's voice softened. But you will, if you're willing to do the work. I am. Then report to my office at 0600 tomorrow. We start with the basics, not the fighting, you've got that. The seeing, learning to read situations before they become problems, learning to prevent violence instead of just responding to it. Rodriguez straightened slightly. Yes, ma'am. And Rodriguez, ma'am, if you ever feel yourself becoming something you don't recognize, tell me. That's not weakness. That's the most important skill you'll ever learn. Rodriguez nodded. Something in her expression said she understood exactly what Maya meant. Dismissed. Rodriguez walked back toward the barracks. Maya watched her go, thinking about David, about the 39 stars on her wrist, about the legacy she was building without having planned to build it. Harrington appeared beside her. That went well? You were listening. I'm always listening. He paused. David would be proud of what you're doing here. David killed himself because we never taught him how to survive what we made him. Yes. But before he died, he tried to fix it. He trained Rodriguez, probably others. He saw what you represented and tried to replicate it. Harrington's voice softened. That's not failure, Sterling. That's hope. That's one operator's attempt to redeem the program before the end. Maya touched her wrist. 3rd star from the left. I miss him. I know. I should have reached out. Should have tried to help. You didn't know. None of us knew until it was too late. That's the tragedy of what I built. It isolated everyone. Made them think they had to carry the weight alone. Maya looked at Harrington. Is that why you brought me here, to break that isolation? It's one reason. The other is simpler. He met her eyes. You're the only one who figured out the answer. The only one who learned to be lethal and human at the same time. The only one who chose correctly when it mattered most. He placed a hand on her shoulder. I didn't bring you here to teach fighting skills. I brought you here to teach people how to survive being capable of violence. That's the lesson Shadow Viper never taught. That's the lesson that could have saved David. And everyone else we lost. Maya felt the truth of his words settle into her bones. I'll do my best, sir. I know you will. Harrington turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Sir, that letter from Syria, the one the girl sent, I have the original in my office. I thought you might want to read it yourself. Maya's throat tightened. Yes, sir, I would. Harrington walked away. Maya stood alone on the parade ground, stars wheeling overhead, thinking about letters and legacies, and the strange paths that led from one life to another. The next morning, she read the letter. It was written in careful English, the handwriting of a young woman still learning the language. Maya sat in Harrington's office, the single page trembling slightly in her hands. To the person who saved my family, I don't know your name. I don't remember your face. I was 7 years old, and everything was chaos and fear, and then you were there. I remember your hands, how steady they were, How gentle, even when everything around us was violence. You carried my brother when he couldn't walk. You covered my mother when the shooting started. You put yourself between us and danger, again and again. My mother says you could have left us, that your mission was to save someone else. But you chose us instead. I am 16 now. I am going to be a doctor. I want to save people the way you saved me. I want to put myself between the vulnerable and the danger the way you did for my family. Thank you for my life. Thank you for my mother's life. Thank you for my brother's life. Every day I wake up is a gift you gave me. I will spend every one of those days trying to be worthy of it. Amira Hassan. Maya set the letter down. Her hands were shaking. Tears streamed down her face unchecked. All those years, all that guilt, all those nights lying awake, wondering if she'd made the right choice. And somewhere in Jordan, a 16-year-old girl was becoming a doctor because Maya had chosen humanity over the mission. That was the answer. That was the legacy. That was what Shadow Viper should have been about from the beginning. Not the kills, not the missions, not the tactical victories, the lives saved, the futures created, the hope that survived despite everything. Maya carefully folded the letter, placed it in her breast pocket over her heart. She would carry it there for the rest of her life. 2 years later, Maya stood at the back of a graduation ceremony. 24 candidates were receiving their completion certificates for Advanced Special Operations Training, the course she'd built from nothing. The program that had become the model for special operations training across all branches. Cole stood at her side. He'd been promoted to chief instructor 6 months ago, running the day-to-day operations, while Maya focused on curriculum development and the most challenging cases. Rodriguez was in the front row of graduates. She'd become everything David Chen had hoped for, effective, controlled human. In 3 months, she would deploy to a conflict zone Maya couldn't name to do things that would never appear in any report. But she would come home. Maya was certain of that, because Rodriguez had learned the lesson, had internalized the judgment, had understood that the skills were only half the humanity was what would save her. Harrington took the podium. Class 27, you have completed the most rigorous special operations training program in the world, not because of the physical demands, though those were significant, because of what you learned about yourselves. He paused, scanning the graduates. You learned that completion isn't the same as success, that following orders isn't the same as judgment, that the ability to kill doesn't make you a warrior, the ability to choose when not to kill does. His eyes found Maya at the back of the room. You learned these lessons from someone who paid a price to learn them herself. Someone who walked a path that destroyed most who attempted it. Someone who found a way to be both lethal and human when everyone told her it was impossible. He straightened. Take what you've learned here. Use it wisely. Remember that every choice has consequences. And when you face the impossible decision, and you will trust yourselves, trust your judgment, trust the training. He paused. And know that someone believes in you enough to have taught you how to survive it. The ceremony concluded. Graduates dispersed to find family members to celebrate to begin the next phase of their careers. Rodriguez approached Maya. Ma'am. Rodriguez, congratulations. I wanted to thank you for everything. You did the work. I just pointed the direction. Rodriguez shook her head. No, you did more than that. You showed me it was possible, that the skills and the humanity could coexist, that I didn't have to become a monster to be effective. She paused. David told me about you. But meeting you, training with you, it made it real. Maya touched her wrist. The mark was visible now, always. She'd stopped hiding it the day she signed Harrington's contract. Promise me something. Anything. When it gets hard, and it will get hard, reach out. Talk to someone. Don't carry it alone. That's what killed David. The isolation. The belief that strength meant suffering in silence. Rodriguez nodded. I promise. And if you ever train someone else someday, and you will teach them the same thing, not just the techniques, the survival, the humanity, the ability to come home whole. I will, ma'am. Rodriguez saluted. Maya returned it. Then the young woman walked away toward a future that would be different because of everything she'd learned. Maya watched her go. Cole appeared at her shoulder. You're thinking about David? Always? He'd be proud of what you've built here. Maybe. Maya touched her wrist. I'd rather he was alive to see it. So would I. Cole paused. But if he hadn't done what he did, training Rodriguez trying to fix things before the end, none of this would exist. His legacy lives in every candidate who graduates from this program. Maya considered that. Legacy. She rolled the word around in her mouth. I never thought about it that way. That's because you're still young. Give it another 20 years. Cole smiled slightly. You'll start thinking about what comes after. What comes after is more people like Rodriguez, more operators who understand the cost, more warriors who know when not to fight. Exactly. Cole turned to face her fully. That's the legacy, Sterling, not the missions you completed, not the people you killed, the people you taught, the minds you shaped, the understanding you passed forward. He gestured toward the dispersing crowd. Every one of those graduates will train others someday, and those people will train more. And eventually the lesson you learned in Syria, the one that almost destroyed you, will be standard doctrine, the default approach, the way it's supposed to be done. Maya felt something shift in her chest. A weight lifting, a purpose clarifying. I never wanted to be a legend. Nobody does. That's what makes you a good one. Cole walked away to congratulate the graduates. Maya stood alone, watching the parade ground empty, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. Harrington appeared beside her one final time. You've done something remarkable here, Sterling. We've done something, sir? No, this is yours. I provided resources and support. You provided the vision, the method, the humanity that makes it work. He turned to face her. I built Shadow Viper to create weapons. You've built something to create warriors. The difference matters. Does it? Ask Amira Hassan. Ask the family you saved in Syria. Ask Rodriguez, who's about to deploy knowing she can complete missions and come home whole. Ask the 100+ graduates who've gone through this program and are serving right now with skills and judgment they wouldn't have had otherwise. He placed a hand on her shoulder. The difference matters, Sterling. You matter. Never forget that. He walked away. Maya stood alone on the parade ground as the sun set. She touched her wrist. 39 stars. 14 still breathing. 25 ghosts who would never leave. But they weren't just ghosts anymore. They were teachers. Examples. Warnings and inspirations all at once. David had tried to fix things before he died. Maya was completing what he'd started. And somewhere in the future, operators she would never meet would make choices that saved lives because she'd taught their teachers to be human. That was the legacy of Shadow Viper number 17. Not the kills, not the missions, not the scars. the lives saved, the futures created. The understanding passed forward. Maya looked at the mark on her wrist one final time. Then she turned and walked toward her office. There was curriculum to develop, candidates to evaluate, a next generation to prepare. The ghosts were still there, would always be there. But now they had purpose. Now they had meaning. And that made all the difference. The drill had stopped 2 years ago. Colonel Harrington had shouted those words across every radio frequency and changed everything. But the real mission, the one that mattered, had just begun. Maya Sterling was no longer hiding. She was building, and what she was building would outlast her outlast shadow. Viper, outlast everything that had tried to break her. Because weapons eventually rust and fail. But warriors who know when not to fight, they live forever in the people they save. That was the truth Maya had learned in Syria. That was the truth she would teach for the rest of her life. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. It was